Look closely at the red dirt of the Foro Italico in Rome. If you pay attention, it is not just clay. It is a graveyard of expectations, a theater of the absolute highest pressure, and a proving ground where the established hierarchy of women's tennis is either ruthlessly maintained or violently dismantled. On Sunday, May 10, 2026, the crowds gathered to watch a third-round match between the world number 2, Elena Rybakina, and a 20-year-old from the Philippines named Alexandra Eala. When the final ball was struck and the scoreboard illuminated a 6-4, 6-3 victory for Rybakina, the casual observer might have simply nodded. A routine straight sets win for the heavy favorite, the established order maintained. But that casual observer will be entirely missing the tectonic shift that just occurred right in front of them. The scoreboard lied, because behind closed doors in the locker rooms, inside the corporate offices of the WTA, and across millions of screens in Southeast Asia, the narrative was entirely different. Eala did not just lose a tennis match. She announced a hostile takeover of the sport's future. To understand why a defeat in the third round of the Italian Open has suddenly catapulted Eala into a completely different stratosphere of global popularity and trajectory, we have to look past the box score. We have to understand the phenomenon of the arrival moment. In professional sports, a superstar's arrival is rarely marked by holding up a championship trophy. It is almost always marked by the exact moment they look a titan in the eye and refuse to blink. Elena Rybakina is a titan. She is a powerhouse who strikes the ball with a terrifying, flat trajectory that rushes opponents into forced errors before they even realize the point has begun. Facing Rybakina on clay, especially in Rome, requires not just physical endurance, but a profound level of psychological armor. What the tennis world witnessed was a 20-year-old ranked 42nd in the world, matching the tempo, absorbing the pace, and strategically maneuvering one of the most feared servers in the history of the game. This match was a revelation, a masterclass in latent potential fully realizing itself. But there is a much larger, unspoken consequence here, a mystery we're going to unravel today. Why did Eala's stock soar infinitely higher after this specific loss than it did after her historic victories? Why are global brands suddenly ripping up their marketing playbooks to pivot toward Manila? And most importantly, what did the elite players on the WTA Tour realize about Eala's game during those 19 games in Rome that fundamentally terrifies them? We are not just talking about a talented prospect anymore. We are talking about the complete rewiring of the global tennis economy. For the last decade, women's tennis has been desperately searching for its next definitive global icon. We have seen champions rise and fall. We have seen parity, and we have seen flashes of brilliance. But the Asian market, an economic powerhouse that previously rallied behind pioneers like Li Na and Naomi Osaka, has been waiting for its next undisputed anchor. The stakes here are astronomical. A transcendent player from the Philippines does not just sell tickets. She commands the attention of an entire diaspora. She brings millions of new viewers to the broadcast. She single-handedly spikes racket sales, and she shifts the center of gravity of the sport away from its traditional European and North American strongholds. What we are witnessing is not a temporary surge in popularity. It is the beginning of an era. And by the time we finish breaking down exactly what happened on that court in Rome and trace the breadcrumbs of her meteoric rise over the last 24 months, you'll understand that the hierarchy of women's tennis has already been overthrown. We just hadn't noticed the coup. To fully grasp the magnitude of what unfolded in Rome, we must retrace the steps of a journey that is as grueling as it is unprecedented. The origin story of Alexandra Eala is not a fairy tale of sudden, effortless success. It is a calculated, brutal grind forged in the fires of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. When Eala left the Philippines for Spain, she was essentially trading her childhood for a singular, obsessive pursuit of greatness. In the junior ranks, she was a phenom, a two-time junior Grand Slam doubles champion, and crucially, the 2022 U.S. Open junior singles champion. She was the first Filipino to ever achieve such a feat, but the professional tennis circuit is littered with the ghosts of former junior champions who could not survive the transition to the senior tour. The gap between being the best teenager in the world and surviving a first-round match and ITF 25K event in the middle of nowhere is staggeringly wide. The senior tour is merciless. It is populated by grown women playing for their livelihoods, players who will ruthlessly exploit any technical flaw or emotional fragility in a newcomer. Eala's transition was methodical. The 2023 season saw her scratching and clawing through qualifying draws, learning how to win ugly, and slowly building the physical stamina required for week-in, week-out professional competition. But the absolute watershed moment, the inflection point that set the stage for Rome, occurred in 2025. Entering the Miami Open as a wild card, ranked outside the top 100, Eala orchestrated one of the most stunning Cinderella runs in modern tennis history. She didn't just win matches, she dismantled giants, defeating Madison Keys and completely stunning IGA Swiatek. Eala powered her way to the semifinals, a feat no Filipino had ever achieved at a WTA 1000 event. It propelled her into the top 50, and she followed it up by capturing her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara and reaching the final in Eastbourne on grass. By March of 2026, she hit a career-high ranking of world number 29. This brings us to the why factor. Why did the match against Rybakina in Rome trigger such a massive surge in her popularity, arguably more so than her historic run in Miami? It comes down to validation. Miami proved she had a devastatingly high ceiling. Rome proved she had an incredibly high floor. In Miami, she was playing with house money, a wild card with nothing to lose, swinging freely in the humid Florida air. But coming into Rome, the dynamic had shifted. She was no longer the hunter. She was the hunted. The scouting reports were out. The element of surprise was gone. Let us dive into the microdynamics of her performance at the Italian Open. In the first round, she faced Magdalena Frech. Eala found herself down a break in the deciding third set. The old Eala, the junior champion, might have folded under the weight of expectation. Instead, she rallied, showcasing a mental fortitude that you cannot teach, clawing back to secure her first-ever career win in Rome. In the second round, she faced Wang Xinyu, an Olympic silver medalist. Eala shook off a nervous second set to completely dominate the Chinese star, winning 6-4, 6-3. She was proving that she could win when she wasn't playing her absolute best, the hallmark of a true professional. Then came the Rybakina match. Let us analyze the hidden motives and the tactical warfare of this specific encounter. Elena Rybakina needed this win. She is the tour leader in victories this season, an absolute machine on the court. For Rybakina, a 20-year-old upstart is an annoyance to be swatted away quickly, but Eala did not allow herself to be swatted. The technical breakdown of this match is fascinating. Rybakina is physically imposing, generating massive pace. She used her forehand to try and push Eala into the absolute corners of the court, essentially trying to force the Filipino to play from the doubles alley. Eala is a left-hander, which naturally creates a cross-court dynamic that forces right-handers out of their comfort zones. In the first set, Rybakina fired 13 forehand winners. It was a barrage, but what the elite coaches and analysts noticed was how Eala handled that barrage. She absorbed the pace. She utilized the heavier, loftier conditions of the Roman clay to buy herself time, digging balls out of the dirt that most players would simply watch go by. Rybakina broke Eala early in the first set, which ultimately decided the frame. But the second set was a psychological chess match. Eala found her footing. She went on a tear, winning 8 of 9 points to take a 2-1 lead. She was dictating play against the world number 2. Rybakina, recognizing the danger, had to elevate her game to a championship level just to survive. Rybakina aggressively attacked Eala's second serve, winning 45% of those return points. Down 4-3 in the second set, with Rybakina serving, Eala had a prime opportunity at the net to create 2 break points. She missed it long. The margins of the absolute pinnacle of tennis are measured in millimeters. Eala lost the match 6-4, 6-3. But look at what happened immediately after. The global tennis community erupted because the secret was out. Eala didn't get blown off the court. She forced Elena Rybakina to play her absolute best tennis to win. The WTA Tour recognized that Eala's left-handed game, her incredible court coverage, her defensive resilience learned on the clay of Mallorca, and her rapidly improving offensive aggression make her a matchup nightmare. Now, we must play the devil's advocate. Is this sudden surge in popularity and trajectory simply an overreaction? A hype train fueled by a passionate fan base desperate for a champion? Critics will point to her relatively small stature compared to the modern giants of the game. They will argue that her second serve, which Rybakina exploited, is a glaring vulnerability that the top players will ruthlessly target. There is also the reality of the grueling WTA schedule. Can a 20-year-old body withstand the physical punishment of a 10-month season playing deep into tournaments week after week? We have seen countless players burn out, succumb to injuries, or fall victim to the dreaded sophomore slump once the tour figures out their weaknesses. These are completely valid, objective concerns. The history of tennis is a graveyard of next big things. However, the counter-argument to the skepticism lies in her pedigree. Eala is not a flash in the pan who strung together a few lucky weeks. She has been meticulously developed by the very same academy that produced the greatest clay court player of all time. She possesses a tactical maturity that far exceeds her age. Furthermore, her popularity is not just a byproduct of her tennis. It is a cultural phenomenon. The Filipino diaspora is arguably one of the most passionate and globally distributed demographics in the world. When Eala plays, whether it is in Madrid, Miami, or Melbourne, she effectively has a home crowd. This translates to immense commercial power. Brands are acutely aware that partnering with Eala guarantees engagement on a massive scale. This financial backing allows her to employ the best coaches, the best physios, and the best sports psychologists, creating an infrastructure of success that insulates her from the typical pitfalls of a young athlete. This brings us to the ultimate question. What is the long-term trajectory? If we fast forward 5 years to the year 2031, what does the landscape of women's tennis look like? And where does Alexandra Eala fit into it? Based on the empirical evidence of her development, her mental resilience, and her undeniable talent, it is entirely reasonable to project Eala as a perennial, locked-in top 10 player. 5 years from now, she will be 25 years old, entering the absolute prime of her athletic and psychological capabilities. Her second serve, currently a liability, will have been rebuilt and weaponized. Her court positioning will naturally become more aggressive as she trusts her offensive capabilities as much as her defense. We are looking at a player who will consistently reach the second week of Grand Slams, particularly at the French Open, where her heavy topspin and sliding defense make her a natural contender, and at the U.S. Open, where the hard courts reward her counter-punching style. But her legacy 5 years from now will extend far beyond her trophy cabinet. Eala is currently laying the foundation to become the most influential Asian tennis player of her generation. She is proving that a player from Southeast Asia can not only compete with the European and American powerhouses, but can do so on their own terms, bringing a unique flair, a distinct tactical approach, and an entire nation of supporters with them. The surge in popularity following the Rome defeat to Rybakina was the market correcting itself. The world realized that Eala is no longer a prospect to watch for the future. She is a reality of the present. The final thought I want to leave you with is a redefinition of what it means to win. In a society obsessed with the binary outcome of victory or defeat, we often overlook the nuance of the battle. Alexandra Eala walked off the court in Rome without the win, but she walked away with something infinitely more valuable. She walked away with the undeniable proof that she belongs. She looked into the abyss of the absolute elite level of her sport, and she did not flinch. That is the mark of a champion in waiting. The trajectory is set. The popularity is undeniable, and the tennis world has officially been put on notice. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. If you want to understand the forces shaping the future of global sports, you have to look beyond the headlines and analyze the mechanics of the game. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a comment below. Let me know. Do you think Alex Eala will win a Grand Slam by the time she turns 25? The conversation continues down there. Until next time, keep watching the courts.